It's been 66 million years since the extinction of the dinosaurs, and yet they still manage to capture our imaginations. Why is that? Behind me stands 5027, one of the first T-Rex ever discovered. She sits very comfortably in our American Museum of Natural History's Hall of Dinosaurs. And now meet Stan, one of the most complete Tyrannosaurus rex specimens, formerly the most expensive fossil ever purchased. Stan will be making a public appearance very soon in the Museum of Natural History in Abu Dhabi. These great monuments of stone used to be the largest predator to ever walk the earth. And now here they are, imprints of a long gone past. There's a story within these rocks, one that spans the course of tens of millions of years. So join me now as we travel through the light of discovery and uncover Just like modern birds, every dinosaur's life begins here, within an egg. The low rumblings of their caretakers help to synchronize when the eggs will hatch. Another Tyrannosaur. Conflicts between animals of this size can shake the earth. But not this time. The father, taking his turn to watch the nest. These eggs will take 4 months to finally hatch, so T-Rex couples must take turns watching the eggs while the other searches for food. Despite what you may think, tyrannosaurs were actually very social animals. We found many fossils of different individual tyrannosaurs all fossilized together, of various ages. But how exactly did we manage to find a creature as monumental as Tyrannosaurus rex? 120 years ago, 1902, the American Museum of Natural History set out on an expedition to explore the Badlands of Montana. It is here that an expedition led by Barnum Brown uncovered the first remains of Tyrannosaurus rex, in a very safe and effective manner. Yes, we used to use dynamite to excavate dinosaur bones. While it seems archaic now, the practice was the most effective way we had of removing large amounts of rock. But the obvious downside is that over time we lost so much material because, well, fossils are incredibly fragile. But nevertheless, there it was, Tyrannosaurus rex. The first T-Rex skeleton ever discovered was missing its skull. As such, Barnum Brown had to assume what the head actually looked like. Using the then second largest theropod dinosaur, Allosaurus, we now have that first reconstruction of what T-Rex looked like. It wasn't until a few years later, with the discovery of our 5027, that we finally got a better image of what T-Rex's head actually looked like. Population density research has estimated that each Tyrannosaurus's territory spanned upwards of 40 square miles, and injuries found on the fossils themselves show exactly what happens when those territories overlap. The violence you've just seen isn't pure fantasy. Stan's skeleton has several broken ribs, some of which have scarring that perfectly matches the shape of T-Rex teeth. And that nasty bite to the back of his head, miraculously healed. But in doing so, 2 vertebrae fused together, hindering his ability to move his neck and placing him in unimaginable pain for the rest of his life. For 60 years, 5027 was mounted like this. This tripodal stance may seem ridiculous or archaic at this point. But back then, think of any other large bipedal animal with a long tail. The closest thing that we have in terms of a theropod body plan in the modern day are kangaroos. And as such, scientists had to assume that theropod dinosaurs like T-Rex must have stood similar to how kangaroos stood. Throughout this program, we've been using the term theropod dinosaur. But what exactly is a theropod? Theropods are a type of dinosaur with 3 toes and hollow bones. If you look out your window, you may see one. Yes, birds. Modern dinosaurs. It may shock you to know that birds are actual dinosaurs. You've probably heard someone refer to birds as relatives of dinosaurs or descendants of dinosaurs, but in reality, they are dinosaurs. It wasn't until the 1960s, with the discovery of Deinonychus, that we came about this, or this theory started to perpetuate further. This discovery didn't just reposition birds on the family tree, but it completely changed how we look at dinosaurs as a whole. This stance is just one of the many things that we came about when we finally learned the truth about modern dinosaurs. Something you may have taken advantage of in this program is the inclusion of filamentous feathering on our Tyrannosauruses. Something you may have also noticed: they don't roar like typical animals. Instead, much more of the Tyrannosaurus' sounds that we hear throughout this program have been hisses or low grumbles, more similar to an alligator. The roars that you hear from mammals are created with an organ called the larynx, or a voice box. Reptiles don't have this, however. Instead, they make their open mouth sounds by pushing air out of their lungs and out of their mouth. But notice how I said open mouth vocalization. Large birds and crocodilians more frequently than not used closed mouth vocalization, something more similar to how pigeons coo. So a Tyrannosaurus rex in reality would have sounded much more like an oversized pigeon or a very large alligator rather than a roaring elephant. 3 years later, still somehow surviving with a broken neck. Yet, that fateful injury would not be his downfall. Trichomonas gallinae, or commonly known as Frounce. Fossil analysis of Tyrannosaurus jaws have shown a resounding 15% of T-Rex specimens showed lesions attributed to Frounce, including Stan. This deadly disease has made him unable to hunt, and has led him here to his final resting place. The moving water of this stream will cover Stan's body with sediment, and over millions of years, as the sediment hardens, the remains create a 3-dimensional imprint. Within the rocks, those imprints eventually become fossils that you see today. For over a century, this animal has inspired the scientific eye of millions of people all over the world. New paleontological discoveries are made every day, and each one asks us to challenge our worldview of what the natural world was. In this modern climate, human beings are very uncomfortable with that idea of change. Science changes. Things do not remain simply black and white. As a child, you probably learned that T-Rex was this large, scaly beast, the largest predator to ever walk the land, a massive reptile that didn't care for its young. But the fossils prove otherwise. Science is constantly challenging us to think differently. Paleontology is not very universally loved. 41% of Americans believe that dinosaurs went extinct as little as 10,000 years ago. With our planet constantly heating, paleontology offers us more insight into how our planet functioned throughout history, long before we were around. Our planet, in terms of temperature, is closer to the time of Tyrannosaurus rex than the time in which we discovered T-Rex. If that doesn't concern you, I don't know what will. But by understanding paleontology, we get a greater respect for everything that lives on this planet. We are not a unique life form. There are creatures that were here before us, and there will be creatures who are here after us. But is it not our responsibility to try and undo the harm that we have caused the world? We owe it to the planet, and to each other, to live always with dignity and respect for our natural world, and care for our common home. We need to continue to study, to continue to do research and learn more about our ancient life, so that we can move forward beyond every boundary.